The God of High School is one of the hottest and most promising anime that came out in the summer of 2020. If you didn't know, it's adapted from a Korean webtoon comic series by the same name, so there's already a fan base way before the anime came out. Now, some of those people are saying, just because it didn't follow the comics exactly, is bad. Those people are silly and wrong. The anime has fantastic artwork, the fight scenes are awesome, and so is the soundtrack, by the way. And all of that is great, but what makes this anime, but more specifically episode 1, so good is the writing. The first episode of God of High School wasn't perfect by a long shot, but it's pretty damn good. So I went back and I watched it again to find out what exactly is so good about the writing in this particular episode. And this is what I found. The best thing about episode 1 of God of High School is the character introduction. There is literally character introduction in the first episode of everything, but this one did it really, really well. The way this episode is structured is it has two halves. One is the character introduction, and the second is the actual God of High School tournament. From what I understand, because I haven't read the comics, the character introduction portion is a little bit different from the webtoon version, but the anime version is one of the best character introduction sequences I've ever seen in an anime. Considering how it introduces 3 of the main characters at the same time, it did a really good job of setting up the environment around them as well, and that's just as important as the character intro itself, all while setting up an action sequence that would show how the 3 of them interact with each other is damn near flawless. The episode uses a storytelling technique called character defined by action. It's basically the same thing but more specific version of the saying show don't tell. To make it really simple, it's basically a concept that says the things a character do is who they are. Their action is their word. This means we actually get to see the character come to life with every action they take. We barely get any exposition about these characters being told to us through voiceovers or internal monologue at all, which is really great. Every action taken by each character is carefully crafted and laid out to help with the intro and getting the audience connected with them. We're getting so much information about these characters and who they are in just about 8 to 9 minutes, which is really, really short for introducing 3 characters. It keeps the dialogue to the minimum and there's practically no exposition dump at all, which is really great. I want to go through each of the 3 main characters' introduction one by one and show you where they start, where they end, and the massive amount of information given to us in a really short amount of time through clever storytelling. Let's start with Jin Mori. He's the protagonist of the show, so naturally he has the most scene introducing and fleshing out his character. There is exactly 5 of them. Scene number 1, we see a flashback of him and what I assume is his grandfather. Scene number 2, we see him waking up in his apartment and him realizing he's late to something. Scene number 3, we see him riding his bicycle and trying to get somewhere really quickly. Scene number 4, he sees this old lady getting her purse snatched. And scene number 5 is where he actually goes after the purse thief. Those are pretty much all that was needed to introduce this character, to show us who he is as a person. So let's take a closer look of what we just saw. Let's start with his apartment. The environment a person is in can tell a lot about them. There's a futon and a clock. That's it. This shows that he's very simple and he doesn't really care for much. But if he does care about something, he holds them extremely close to him. You can see this with the picture of him and his grandfather hanging on the wall. It's literally the only other notable thing in this room beside himself. Then there's the busted up clock. He wakes up and instantly realizes he's late, so he has to skip breakfast. It shows that he lets his bad habits get the better of him, and he gets himself in trouble because of it. Possibly often as well. And this trait comes in again in episode 2 when he interferes with the fight that he's not supposed to be in. Next is the way he rides and carries himself on his bicycle is extremely reckless, and he almost hits someone because of it. Obviously, it shows that he's reckless, and it also shows that he's very confident in himself and his skills. Later, as he agonizes over his mistakes, he sees someone in distress, the old lady who just got her purse stolen. He did not at all hesitate to help her. He did not even for a second consider the consequences he would face by doing so. It shows that he's the type of person that put others before himself. It shows that he has a good heart and he never hesitates to do the right thing. And the little story he puts together in his head about the old lady is totally hilarious. When he is chasing after the thief on a motorcycle, he got shaken off multiple times. He never gives up or never show any doubt at all that he will catch up to him. This of course speaks to his confidence and his skills, but also shows his tenacity and the fact that he doesn't know how to give up. We have yet to see him struggle in a fight against someone who's better than he is, but I can tell that if he was losing in that fight, he'd never say I surrender. With only 5 scenes sprinkled throughout the span of merely about 10 minutes, we know that Jin Mori is someone who's simple in his life philosophy. He can be reckless, but also has a very good heart, always does the right thing, often puts others before himself, and sometimes lets his bad habits get the better of him. We also got a pretty good insight into who he might be as a fighter before we see him fight for the first time. And all of this was done with absolutely zero exposition or dialogue, meaning there's no character saying things or texts or voiceovers telling us all this information. We get to see it unfold with the story. This was just pure, unadulterated, good storytelling. And this is true for the introductions of the 2 other main characters as well. And both of them are done within the same 10-minute span I've been talking about, which makes it all the more impressive. And you can tell by the attention and care that clearly went into the writing of these scenes alone that these characters are very important and they are indeed the main characters. If you compare how the 3 main characters are introduced, any of them, to that one guy who comes in late to the tournament, you see the difference in effort and screen time. Even though he seems like this big bad guy, I can tell that he'll only be relevant only for this arc or even like only a few episodes, and he probably won't stick around. I'll go over how the other 2 main characters were introduced as well, but I'll be quick about it for the sake of time. Next up, we got the female lead, Mira Yu, and she only got 2 scenes for her introduction. Really, it's just 1 scene, it's just cut up in half. And again, this is the same 10 minutes that I was talking about. So scene number 1, we see that she's lost and she's kind of awkwardly asking directions to the stadium. This shows that she can be clumsy and shy, but she's also not afraid to ask for help. Then we see her shyness completely goes away when she starts complimenting these guys on their muscles and bodies. It shows that she's honest. She's the type of person that wears her emotions on her sleeves. Personally, I think even more so than Jin. And just like Jin, she doesn't hesitate to do the right thing when she offers to help chase down the thief. We also learn that she can hold her own and she doesn't take crap from anyone. This is clear in scene number 2. It's pretty much the same scene, which is cut back to it later. She gets struck in the face by a bicycle. She immediately gets up and goes after the person responsible. It's a pretty decent character intro. It only takes 2 scenes to do it. Technically just 1. That's great in my book. The last of the main characters had 3 scenes to work with. I don't know how to say his first name. It's like Dewa or something like that. So I'll just call him Han. Scene number 1, we see him at what I assume is his part-time job. He just finished working his night shift and he's gonna go directly to the tournament right after. This shows that 1, he is a hard worker who doesn't complain, and 2, he's willing to pick up more shift to make more money, which means that he desperately needs the money. And that is a hint to what his motivation might be for competing in this tournament in the first place, which is something we didn't get for the other 2 characters. Scene number 2. He's walking down the street, he sees this crazy stuff going down, and he just remains kind of calm and he doesn't really have any reaction to it. But in his mind, he's already planning out how he's gonna help them. How this guy reacts to the situation around him is vastly different from how the other 2 main characters would. He's much more stoic, he's more careful and more calculated. He does not thoughtlessly run after them. He takes a shortcut, he gets in front of the target, and he strikes them down. And unlike the other 2, he seems to keep his emotion inside. And I'll bet anything that his fighting style probably reflect those characteristics as well. And lastly, scene number 3 is when we see him stop the robber just when we think he's gonna get away. This also shows that, like the other 2, he's a good person with a good heart, but more importantly, it shows that he's dependent, that when push comes to shove, you can rely on him to do what it takes. I really like this character because he gives a good contrast in terms of personality to the other 2 characters, who are pretty similar in my opinion. This makes a really good dynamics for character development for all 3 of them, because character development basically means how the character grows by learning and adapting to things that are new to them, usually from people around them. And when we have two characters who are fundamentally different in how they act, they learn from each other and grow together, which is a really cool concept. In just about half of the episode, we learn all of that information about 3 different characters in a very creative way. Plus, usually in most animes, they would take several episodes to do this, especially the big ones like Naruto, One Piece, My Hero Academia. One Piece in particular, if I remember correctly, it spent the whole first episode introducing Luffy. In My Hero Academia, I think it spent like 5 episodes or 3 to 5 episodes before Deku actually goes to the entrance exam. So all things considered, in a very short amount of time, 9 to 10 minutes give or take, the God of High School did a very effective job of introducing its 3 main characters in one episode. Yes, it doesn't follow the comics exactly, but if this show and its writing staff keeps up this high level of storytelling, it has a legit shot of being a great anime. My name is Nick, and this is my podcast where I talk about notable storytelling techniques in movies, TV shows, but mostly animes. And I want to ask for your help. I love stories, and storytelling is my favorite thing in the world. I love making this podcast, and I want this channel to grow. I want to do this as a job. It's a dream that I have. I'm a broke college student, and I'm trying to find my own path in this world. If you like my content, if you want to support me, if you believe in my dream, please tell your friends about my podcast. You can post a screenshot or a link or anything on Twitter or Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, any social media platform you might use. It will really help me grow. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope you have a great day.